So can people out there hear me okay in Zoom land?
Yes, Bhante, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Mr. Ganipula, yeah, I'll try to answer your question tonight you sent me.
What do you have to request? Okay. Okay.
Bhante, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Okay, we'll go ahead and begin by reciting the Namo Tassa and the three refuges for those who like to join. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Welcome, friends, to this Wednesday evening Dhamma discussion and meditation practice. I hope all of you were able to receive the mailing I sent out on Monday with the link to the topic of tonight's discussion on the Panch Indriya, or the five spiritual faculties. And these five spiritual faculties they're called controlling faculties. They're qualities of the mind, aspects of the mind that help guide our mind toward you could say, the spiritual life, or at least guide the mind in the Dhamma. Let's put it that way. Some people, they may or may not like the term spiritual and so on. But so guiding our mind to the Dhamma. But as most people know, Dhamma is the practice that we do to free the mind from greed, hatred, and delusion, free the mind from its self-created prison and entanglement with the states of mind that bring a lot of problems to our life and suffering. So, but I like the term spiritual faculties. There's a question about that terminology that I'll try to answer later on. But basically, these five spiritual faculties are faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And usually they are listed in that order because of that's the normal sort of unfolding of those faculties. Now, the actual Pali word is Panch Indriya, and why do they choose the term faculty? Well, I like to describe the faculty as, let's say, for those of you who have been to college, right? You have a faculty advisor, let's say, especially if you are doing a PhD, an advisor, or the faculty, the faculties in the universities help guide a person's study, right, or research. And so the same way, when we practice Dhamma, we are studying the Dhamma, we are researching the Dhamma, we are researching the cause of suffering. And so these faculties help to guide our mind to that, because we may not know. Because of ignorance, especially people born and brought up in this country, we might not have heard about the teachings of the Dhamma or the Buddha until we were already, fairly old, or in school, or so on. Especially true, 30, 40 years ago. So anyway, the term faculties for these qualities of the mind are which help to, it's like putting a train on the tracks, getting it pointed in the right direction. And then once the train gets going, then, it goes, straight to its goal. It doesn't get off the tracks. So it's to help to put our mind on the track of Dhamma. So what are these? As I mentioned, the first one is faith. And this word is in Pali language called saddha. And sometimes people don't like the term faith because it, has too much kind of religious connotations or the idea of blind faith. So sometimes the word confidence is used. But, I'm perfectly fine and happy using the term faith, because we have to have faith that means confidence that something that we're about to do is going to have some good effect. Otherwise, why are we going to put years and years or even money and so much time into studying and practicing the Dhamma if we don't think it's going to bring us any positive effects, right? Normally people don't put time and effort into something that they don't believe is going to have some result. So, and the faith is basically, 3 levels of faith, especially in terms of the Dhamma. For people who weren't born in a Buddhist country, weren't, exposed to the Dhamma at a young age, especially in these Western countries, as I already mentioned, we may not have heard anything about Buddhism until we were already 20 years old or more. So the first time you hear about the Dhamma is usually, either reading a book or hearing a lecture like this. Maybe some friend says, "Hey, a Buddhist monk is giving a talk. Let's go down and listen." So maybe you go to the lecture and you hear the talk, and maybe it inspires you or pricks your interest. Anyway, it pricks your interest. So that first level of understanding is, intellectual understanding. Because that's the way we learn anything, is through thinking and reasoning out things. But that gets your interest going. Like you hear about the Four Noble Truths. And say, wow, I haven't heard that before. The Eightfold Path. Meditation is a way to overcome, certain, mental problems, or to get out of your doldrums or emotions or bad habits. The way that meditation is being taught these days is, offering a lot of different benefits. Anyway, so it pricks your interest. It gets you excited about, oh yeah, I want to practice now. So that's called what we call excited faith. But that gets you started, and that gives you energy. So the second factor is the energy to practice. But then what are you going to practice? And so the first thing that we normally practice in terms of meditation is practicing mindfulness, and then concentration, and then we're practicing like the precepts, following the Noble Eightfold Path. So we've already talked quite a bit about the Eightfold Path and right view in the last few weeks. So the effort to practice and to gain right view, and that's the way we gain faith also. Things that help to generate faith are things like having confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, or knowing people that you know people that have practiced the Dhamma for a long time, and you like the way they behave, or you are attracted to them, to learn something. Or you read the life of the Buddha and the great disciples and other things, and having spiritual friends and listening to more Dhamma talks. So this helps to, strengthen your faith to practice more. But then through the practice of, when you practice the precepts, let's say you stop killing animals or insects. You start having more compassion for people, and you stop telling lies. Maybe you follow the 5 precepts. And then you start to notice after several months of, trying to follow the 5 precepts, that your mind isn't filled with so much guilt, worry, remorse, and fear, and worry about, getting caught or found out for having, broken some of the precepts. So you see the benefit there. That's kind of comes very quickly. You can see the benefit in practicing the Dhamma, even of just practicing the 5 precepts. But then as you practice the 5 precepts, you realize that, you break them because you're not very mindful. And so the urges, the old past urges, come very strongly. So, the practice of meditation, that's why the practice of mindfulness and meditation plays an important part, so that you can actually practice the precepts. You're more mindful. Like when you're about to tell a lie, you can say, oh, telling a lie is going to bring me problems. So let me just tell the truth. Or, any of the other types of precepts or other practices of the Dhamma, you start to, get the benefit of that. So that, and once you get the benefit of it, that increases your effort to want to practice even more. And then practicing, of course, meditation and developing concentration. And when you start experiencing more mental inner peace and start getting some little insights into the nature of the mind, and realize that you don't have to be more neurotic. You start to become more inwardly sort of peaceful, and getting some moments of a deeper kind of inner peace that helps to solidify your faith even more, and the effort to practice. So the faith helps to generate the energy to practice. And what you practice is practicing the Dhamma, practicing the Eightfold Path, especially the precepts, and then practicing the meditation. And so that the energy, and that's where gives you the energy to, you practice mindfulness. And the mindfulness helps you to, increase that energy. And the mindfulness leads to concentration. And then the balance of mindfulness and concentration leads to the wisdom. I've talked a lot about the wisdom in the past. The wisdom also has 3 levels. Now, I mentioned faith has 3 levels. That's the excited faith. So a lot of people, they hear about the Dhamma, they go on a retreat, they get really enthusiastic, and then they go home and maybe they don't have other people to practice with, and little by little that initial enthusiasm starts to dissipate, or maybe they're not making as quick a progress in their meditation as they had hoped to. And so they realize that maybe I'm not going to get enlightened in 6 months. Sometimes that's a naive idea that some people have. Go on a retreat, and in 1 retreat or so, or go on a month retreat, attain some deep stages of meditation. And maybe they do during the retreat, but when they come home and they don't have that retreat environment, then they're not able to maintain that. And so their mind kind of goes back to normal. But at least, they get a little taste of what, meditation can be like. So they still have that faith, and it becomes more of an enduring faith. So rather than, it goes from an excited faith to a realization that, this practice is going to take a little bit more time than might be expected to. They realize how deeply entrenched their mind is in so many unwholesome habits of thought and speech and action. So, but because of that little practice that they did, they still have that faith, but it's more of an enduring faith. as the saying goes, keep up the faith. Anyway, but as you go on practicing, then all those faculties strengthen. And the concentration, the mindfulness helps you to gain concentration. And the concentration, the balance of mindfulness and concentration produces the wisdom. And the wisdom matches the three levels of faith and wisdom are kind of connected. So that first level of faith depends on the intellectual wisdom you got from reading the book or hearing some lectures. So that's connected. That gets you excited to want to practice. And then the second level of wisdom is the understanding that comes through, meditation and thinking about the Dhamma. So you go on, the more you read and think about the Dhamma, you keep the Dhamma in your mind, then at least that will maintain that kind of faith and help you to keep on practicing the meditation as much as you can, even though you might not be making as quick results as you could. So those levels of the excited faith is connected with the intellectual wisdom, and then the enduring faith is connected with the deeper level of understanding that comes through thinking about the Dhamma, not just intellectually, but thinking and observing how the Dhamma is working in your life, getting some of the effects of the Dhamma, like through practicing the precepts and practicing metta meditation, perhaps, and mindfulness, and just, making your life a little bit less complex and complicated. That you gain that deeper level of understanding. And then finally, the third level of doubt is when you actually reach the first level of what is called entering the stream, where you have that real first glimpse of sort of no self, or some people call it emptiness, but basically it's no self, where the sense of self is, dissolves, and you experience that pure, expanded, pure type of awareness with just the deeper knowing and the freedom from greed, hatred, and delusion, even if it's just a temporary. So it goes beyond doubts. We've talked about this before, how that experience, makes that doubts, sort of overcomes them and makes it unshakable faith. So that faith then becomes unshakable once you start getting those really deeper insights that lead to, those stages of entering the stream and beyond. And that's connected with the wisdom that comes out of the deeper meditation, the bhavanamaya panya. Now, so these three, all five of these faculties, they help to get our mind on the right track. The faith gets our mind at least pointing in that direction. Maybe it was going in the opposite direction. Maybe you were, thinking about becoming any other types of religion. But all of a sudden you hear the Dhamma, you say, "Wow, this sounds a little bit more promising, than something else." And maybe you change your direction. So that's like putting the mind on a track. And then you practice meditation, and that gets the mind moving down the tracks. And start practicing the Dhamma. So anyway, now we talked about the balancing these 5 faculties. And the faith like in some Buddhist countries, a lot of people have tremendous faith in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha because they're taught that as a young child. Their parents have taken them to the temples and, taught them about bowing and offering flowers, and they have a lot of faith. But sometimes people might, they see people bowing to the Buddha and being very pious and offering flowers and circumambulating Bodhi trees and doing all these sort of what appear on the outside as kind of just blind rituals. And a lot of them may not meditate, so their faith is very strong. And so that faith can lead to a kind of a mushy type of faith. Oh, the Buddha, the Buddha, the Buddha, and, wanting to bow and touch the feet of all the monks and, just spending hours and hours just reciting the, qualities of the Buddha and all that. And, that may be well, but, they may not meditate. And so their understanding is, kind of, limited. It's lopsided. And so that faith has to be balanced by wisdom. And on the other side, if a person just wants to meditate with Westerners, they hear about meditation and then with their ego, they think, oh, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to concentrate and I'm going to attain these states. And so I don't need the Buddha and anything else. I'll just follow these, this meditation course, or somebody told them to, chant a mantra or stare at a candle flame or watch their breath, but they don't understand the sort of the principles behind it. And so, they can kind of get they're thinking they're doing it rather than following these guidelines that allow the process to happen by itself. So the faith helps to soften up the heart and not to be so dry and intellectual. Because a lot of people are, proud themselves on, deep intellectual understanding of the Dhamma, but they might not have practiced meditation too much, and their understanding is kind of just more dry, just verbatim from the books and so on, without a lot of deep practice. But anyway, the faith helps to soften up the heart and to balance that just the pure intellect with more of the heart. So we call it balancing the heart and the brain, so to speak, by developing. That's why taking refuge in the Triple Gem is considered to be a foundation of practicing the Dhamma. But a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't need that. I'm just going to do it myself." And they may learn to meditate and so on, but at a certain point, they might come up against some inner blocks, which is that kind of that clinging to the sense of still clinging to a sense of self, that I'm doing it and I don't need any help, anybody, and so on. So anyway, that's the faith is balanced by the wisdom. And the wisdom is balanced by the faith. And mindfulness is what balances them. Mindfulness sits between them, because mindfulness will help you to see that if you have too much concentration or wisdom and not enough faith, you can see how the mind may get a little imbalanced. And then the other two, the energy and concentration, these have to be balanced. So you can put in a lot of energy to study and reading books and practicing, different things, but it has to be balanced with the concentration. So the concentration helps to calm the mind down. But if there's too much concentration and not enough energy to practice, then that can also become imbalanced too. The mind can get too calm and just withdrawn, especially when you attain the states of jhana. This is especially in terms of how the mindfulness, you balance mindfulness and concentration. So mindfulness is an alert state of mind that's aware of whatever is happening in your body and mind, so that you can let go of negative states and make the effort to apply the antidotes to overcome negative states and to create the wholesome states. And if the mind gets too concentrated, it may just want to, get attached or get stuck in that trap of tranquility and not want to go out and start, the energy to investigate, the energy, to practice mindfulness and to investigate the Dhamma and to practice, let's say, the Vipassana style of moment-to-moment attention and so on. So that energy is balanced by concentration. There's too much energy, the mind can get distracted, and it won't have the power to, really stay focused. It can get too distracted by trying to be aware of too many things or to do too many things at one time. So the concentration helps to keep the mindfulness sort of focused, so that it can gain the type of power to really penetrate through the layers of delusions and so on that are coming up in our mind. So that is how that mindfulness is really the balancing point between the faith and the wisdom and the energy and the concentration. And it's only when these spiritual faculties are developed and matured over a long period of time will all the other conditions, these are not like separated practice only by themselves, because these same factors you find in the 7 factors of enlightenment and the Eightfold Path. You find, concentration and, mindfulness and concentration and right understanding, which is wisdom. So it's not that these 5 faculties are, separate from the other aspects of the practice, but they're just different ways of describing the process. And faith is maybe not one of the ones that are directly mentioned in, let's say, the Eightfold Path and so on as certain factors, but the rest of them are energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. Those 4 factors are mentioned in most of the lists of positive mental qualities. And all of these are these faculties that keep guiding the mind toward deeper and deeper levels of insight and understanding, and also freeing and liberating the mind from its negative thoughts and karmic actions that keep the mind very limited and keep it repeating its kind of negative habits and so on. So I'm just giving this as a brief review because I hope that you all will read that link that I gave you on these 5 spiritual faculties. Was an essay by a Buddhist scholar, and it lists in there. If you read through that, it's quite long, but it's got a lot of very detail and aspects about how to cultivate and to develop these spiritual faculties. So I highly would encourage you to, if you haven't yet. I know it was quite a long article, but it's something you can read, little by little. Now, as I mentioned, there's somebody had written in a question. Even if you have a question about anything I was just mentioning or what you might have read, you can also write that down on the chat box, and if we have time, we'll read some of those too. Now, this question, this person says, would it be all right to interchange the two words, spiritual and intellectual, without losing the meaning when describing these 5 faculties? I find the 5 faculties have close relationship with one's intellectual state of mind, just like the spiritual state of mind. Now, I wouldn't personally use the term intellectual, just calling them the 5 intellectual faculties, because that, limits their deeper meaning. And as I already mentioned, why we call them the spiritual faculties, these are connected with the Dhamma, and the Dhamma is basically a spiritual path, no matter what you might want to otherwise call it, a way of life, a philosophy, or a religion, and so on. It means, when you talk about a spiritual path, it means something beyond the mundane, something that lifts the mind into a higher vibratory state in which it can sort of transcend the ordinary kind of mundane preoccupations, and to reach a more subtle dimension of awareness. So, and that's what these 5 faculties are doing. So it starts with the intellectual, as I already mentioned, but the intellectual understanding is what puts the mind on the track and gets the person to start practicing, the steps of the Eightfold Path, like the precepts and meditation and the other aspects of the Dhamma practice. So I personally wouldn't use the term as intellectual things, because it's not just intellectual, it's more, it opens up the heart more than the brain. And actually, there's a word, buddhi. It's very interesting. The Buddha, the word Buddha, one who is awake, comes from the word buddhi. And buddhi is a Sanskrit word that means the higher intelligence, or the higher intellect, which means the intellect of the spiritual dimensions. So most people think this brain and their mind, that's all there is to the mind, but that's a very mundane and limited definition of the mind. The spiritual dimensions of the mind, or the mind that goes beyond just subject, object, and logical reasoning, and what's coming through the senses. That's only the tip of the iceberg. What we're consciously aware of in the world, and even in science, is just a tip of the iceberg to what's available when the mind gets purified of greed, hatred, and delusion, and especially in terms of the consciousness. So that's why the word buddhi comes from the word, a Buddha is one who has developed their buddhi to the highest degree. And, it's called the higher intellect. I mean, this is the English translation of the words, because a lot of the Dhamma Sanskrit words in Pali, they don't have any exact equivalent in English or in some other languages. Western type of languages. So anyway, I hope that answers your question about that it starts with intellectual understanding, but it goes far beyond that when using in terms of these specific faculties. Because nowadays a lot of people, they don't have faith in anything, they just have faith in getting rich and making money, have faith in whatever. That's why there's so many lost souls in the world. They don't have faith in something that's a higher pursuit than just the mundane. And a lot of people don't have energy, especially for doing the type of Dhamma practice. They have energy to increase their mundane, their preoccupation with the mundane world, and let alone mindfulness and concentration in wisdom. So, if anybody else has a question, you want to raise the yellow hand, or Prashanta, I see you there. Has anybody got it? I can't see my chat box here. It used to be the chat box.
Yeah, nothing yet in the chat box. Nothing yet in chat box.
Nothing in the chat box, okay. Okay, there's a yellow hand I see. Damon.
Thank you. Bhante, in that, I read some of the link that you sent to access to insight, and there is mention of the term deathless in that link. Several times they keep mentioning the deathless. What is the relationship of the deathless to these five faculties, and why is it called deathless?
Well,
and what is the deathless anyway?
It means the state that was never born and never dies. Mm-hmm. It's a synonym for Nibbana. Basically, it's called the deathless state. It's a synonym for Nibbana. That means the complete liberation of the mind from greed, hatred, and delusion. And, the Buddha's very first sermon of turning the wheel of Dhamma, he said, "Open is the door to the deathless." So it basically refers to that state of, just the pure awareness that's beyond, birth and death.
All right, is that
Nibbanic awareness?
Is that possible for us beginners to glimpse the deathless during, moments of meditation?
You may not glimpse the deepest level of it, but you can get glimpses of it. Let's say there's an analogy given in the suttas about a person who was walking through the desert and he was extremely thirsty, and then they come to a well, and he looked down into the well and he can feel some cool breeze come up, some cool sensation coming from deep in the well. And so he might think, oh, maybe there's water in there. And maybe he sees some ferns growing in the walls of the rocks of that well. And so you would get a faith that there is some water there. And anyway, that's an analogy of, how even though he can't taste the water or he hasn't directly seen it, or then maybe he's going to the well and somebody's running who had just had a bucket and took a bath in the well. And this person is running through the desert with wet hair, and they go, "What the heck? How do your hair get wet?" "Oh, there's a well over there." So just hearing that, right? That would give them, they saw somebody else had wet hair, right? So that gives them the faith that maybe they were about ready to sit down and die. But that energy gave them the ability to walk another half a mile or a mile to get to the well. And then, because that person had come from there, then they would at least have an idea. And then they look down in there, they feel that coolness coming up, but they may not have a bucket to actually get it to drink. So anyway,
Yeah.
so when you practice the Dhamma, as I already mentioned, let's say you start practicing the precepts, let's say you stop telling lies for a few weeks. Maybe you were, used to tell a lot of lies, or you stop using bad language like cursing, especially to maybe your family members or some other kind of, negative traits. Let's say you just do that even for a month. Then you realize, you'll see a change in your own mind and consciousness a little bit. And you'll see a change in the others and their attitude towards you too, you see. And so you'll think, oh, yes, that has some benefit. Anyway, so as you go on and practice, and, then in meditation, when you start to gain a little concentration, the mind becomes a little quiet, at least some of these ideas that you've read about start to make a little bit more sense, because the mind is getting more calm and relaxed, and it can notice more things. And it allows some of this natural wisdom that's in our unconscious mind to slowly come up. And so you get these little glimpses off and on if you develop a kind of a steady meditation practice. Especially if you go on some longer meditations and so on. And the more you practice, the more you'll get them. But you cannot predict how fast it may take in order to reach, the state of, getting that full experience of the deathless state, which would be equal to, entering the stream, as they say.
Right.
You can get at least an idea, even when the mind starts calming down a little bit. The things that you've read about in the Dhamma, they'll make more sense. And that's what helps your faith get stronger.
Yeah. Why do they use the term deathless, like less death, or why? Yeah.
Because the Buddha attained the deathless state. That means he's not going to die. And it's a state, it's a state that was never born and never died. It doesn't die. So the Buddha attained the deathless state. That means he's not going to die. His body died, but that's not death in the Dhamma teaching. The ego died already. That's beyond death. So the Buddha already escaped the death. Because the death of the body is not death in the Dhamma, in the deepest understanding of the Dhamma, especially when you attain Nibbana. Although when the last body dies, you attain what is called the complete Nibbana. Whereas a person like the Buddha lived for 45 years, but his mind had attained Nibbana, the deathless state. And it wasn't being born. That means the ego died. The ego's not born again, and it's already died already. So he reached the deathless state even while living, because birth and death is associated with the paticca samuppada and being caught in the 12 links of dependent origination. The person who attains full enlightenment has already escaped that. And so the death of the physical body is really nothing to them, because, it doesn't mean much, the death of the body.
Great.
So Bhante I'm sorry. Does the deathless, is that equivalent of selfless?
Yes, pretty much.
In a way.
I mean, the ego has to completely get transcended to really call it the deathless state. Yes.
Right, right. Okay.
Because our mind is being born and dying with the sensory, every moment of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking. When the mind is caught up in the reactions and all that, it's being born and dying every moment. But when you attain a deep state of, let's say, concentration and samadhi, where the mind is no longer going through that, then all that birth and death of the mental states, birth and death of greed, anger, various thoughts, all that is temporarily subsided.
Right.
So that's a kind of a, an approximation of, that's how we can experience and understand these terms that we hear about the deathless state and transcendence and so on, only when we reach those states of meditation where we've actually directly experienced this paradigm shift of consciousness.
So Bhante, it's you do get that selfless state when you're in deep meditation, but then when you start doing your daily tasks and you get busy with your stuff, that sense of self comes back again. So how do you manage to just to keep the same selfless state even during
You
doing your
can't.
tasks?
You can't until you attain enlightenment. Only the enlightened person, like Maharishi, Ramana Maharishi, somebody like that, is in that state permanently. But even a Sotapanna, once returner, they're not in that state. They can get into that state for periods of time, but they come out of it. It's because it's so deep. It's so deep.
Yeah.
Actually, I would like you to also confirm that just by being less selfish in daily life is a way of experiencing less of your own self.
That's right. Yes. That's why when we do acts of kindness and go out and help other people without expecting any rewards and so on, we're helping to foster that kind of weakening that sense of I and me. I, me, and mine. These are the three ways we keep on, strengthening our sense of self through I, me, and mine. And by, weakening that, that's the way we gradually weaken it.
And that is why the acts of kindness or service bring you a deep sense of peace.
Yes.
Because you are.
Yeah, it's helping to weaken that self-centered, selfish, self-centered standpoint.
Yeah, the ego or whatever.
Which creates a lot of attention.
Correct.
It creates tension in our nervous system. Okay, there's another yellow hand raised up there before time gets away. Okay, you like to ask a question? Ciao?
Yes, hi Bhante. Thank you for your teaching. So when we think, thoughts are also part of the self, like part of the ego then? So?
Well, yes, depending on what sort of thoughts it is. You can have thoughts of, metta, and certain thoughts don't have so much ego behind them. Other thoughts do. You can see it clearly in your mind when you have this strong, I'm going to get to it. You can see how strong that sense of ego is. But when you're, in meditation and so on, that ego kind of dies down, but it comes up again. What happened to that person? If that person has disappeared. Okay, friends.
There is a comment in the chat about using the word anatta instead of deathless. because that leads to, which is the same construction as the word amata, which is in the same construction as the word anatta, or no self. I think that deathless is not a good translation. It seems to lead a lot of misunderstanding. It's not immortality, but no death or non-death. That is my understanding. So he's trying to comment that amata compared with anatta. Anatta does the anatta describes the nibbana? Is the same thing? Anatta and amata?
Yes. Amata Dhamma is a synonym for Nibbana, the deathless state.
And anatta too?
Yes, anatta leads to the deathless. You have to allow the ego to dissolve, and then you experience a deathless state.
Yeah, Bhante, I never heard of the word amata before. Anatta, yes, but not amata.
Well, it's not that commonly used, but it is. It is Amata Dhamma. Yes. You know, there's a monastery called
Amravati, right?
Amaravati. It comes from Amaravati. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
And
Yeah.
Bhante, another is just a quick inquiry. Are we going to broadcast Zoom session for the year-end retreat?
Well, you're the Prashant right there can answer that if he's willing to to do that, because he's sort of would be involved in helping that. Like I did, probably not the whole retreat, but maybe the Dhamma talks, the afternoon Dhamma talk, and maybe a guided meditation. I'll decide that by next Monday when I send out my sort of last emailing for this year. There won't be a Wednesday class next week because our year-end retreat starts next Wednesday night. So this will be the last Wednesday Zoom session until maybe the first week in January. But I'll send out maybe a mailing on Monday to make an announcement about broadcasting some of the Dhamma talks and maybe meditation during the retreat.
So, Bhante, once again, what are the dates for the year-end retreat?
The 27th through January 1st, but the 27th in the evening. But so if we do any Dhamma talks, it will only start on the 28th. So the 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st, and then in the first closing talk. So maybe those 5 talks, and then we'll see about some of the meditations.
And to include some of them in the Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bhante. Look forward to it.
Yeah. So, Bhante, can one get enlightened through yoga?
What?
Can one get enlightened through doing yoga?
Can you get enlightened through doing yoga?
Yes.
Well, it depends on what kind of yoga you're doing. Meditation is also yoga.
Slow yoga.
Vipassana meditators are called yogis in Burma. And the real deepest meaning of yoga is meditation. That means yoking the ego, letting the ego dissolve, is yoga.
The union, Bhante.
What Patanjali called yoga is chitta vritti nirodha, the ceasing of the fluctuations of the ego consciousness. So, in that sense, but if you're talking about just the exercise itself, probably not, but it helps to, condition the body and mind so that it makes meditation hopefully much, your progress more smoothly and quickly, probably.
Bhante, actually, talking about yoga, this is the interesting question she raised, because yoga, the asana practice, is the first foundation of mindfulness of the body, right?
Not necessarily. Only the Padmasana was talked about in the Buddha's teaching of mindfulness of the body. He talked about only the Padmasana, or the seat for the sitting meditation, not all these other 450 yoga postures that they teach.
I thought maybe all the asanas, if you concentrate on the body, the particular posture that you're doing, that also brings
That can get you into a state of concentration and can help you, but I don't know. People are going to argue back and forth about it, and I'm not going to get into that. From my own experience, the reason why I practice the yoga and why I teach it is for a help for the meditation.
Yeah.
Not as an end to itself. It helps to get the mind into that state of a present moment awareness and in tune with the deeper, subtler vibrations.
Yeah. Thanks,
Okay,
Bhante.
friends, we need to finish this up so we can get to our meditation practice. So anyway, thank you for joining and your questions.
Thanks, Bhante.
Let's take a short
interesting.
break, come back and do some yoga and then have our meditation practice. Okay? We'll see you back in a few minutes.
You experience it.
move the camera back. Oh, back toward more of my head exposed so the arms can be seen. Smooth back, not so big. Okay. Then you go ahead and stand straight, relax your arms to the sides, just gently close your eyes. Try to feel the outline of the standing body if you can. And begin some deep, slow breathing, developing this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Put my clock. Combine this breathing with these movements. The next in-breath, raise the arms over the head. Interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms. Stretch the head back, stretch upward. Out breath, touch the top of the head. And the in-breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, bend backward. Feel the sensation. Out breath, touch the top of the head. Third time, hold the upward stretch longer. Bend back a little more. And release the fingers. The out breath, arms back to the sides. Close the eyes. Feeling the body. Feel the increased pulsations in your hands and fingers. Feel the clothing touching the skin. Letting go of your thoughts. Feeling the body, thinking the body, body, body. And next we'll do the side bending. In breath, raise both arms up. On the out breath, bend over the right side. In breath, lift up. And to the left, out breath. In. Keep alternating sides with the breathing out. The out breath, lower the arms. Close the eyes, keep feeling the body, and feel the outline of the body in the mind's eye. Feel the increased sensation, clothing touching the skin, subtler sensations under the skin. Remember the present moment of standing. You now spread the legs, feet apart, about 3 feet. Hold the hands up, arms out at the sides, twisting from right to left. Breathe in. The out breath, twist to the right. The eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath back to the front. Let the feet turn with the body, twist to the left side. Out breath. In breath. Keep alternating sides. Once more to each side. Lower the arms. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel all the different sensations. Remember standing. Now place the hands together at the chest. On the in-breath, hands over the head. In the out-breath, hands to the chest, bend the knees, lower down. Feel the stretch in the hips and knees. In the in-breath, lift up. Out. Out-breath. Keep feeling the body, increase sensation, letting go of your thought. Now bring the feet back together. And this one last exercise, backward and forward bending. So turn the palms outward to touch the edges of your hands together. On the in-breath, raise the hands up, level with your eyes. And begin spreading the arms apart. On the out-breath, bend backwards. Bring your arms out to the horizontal on each side. The in-breath, carefully lift up. Keeping the arms out at the sides, and on the out-breath, lower the arms and hands down towards the floor. And keep your legs straight. You touch your toes on the floor. You begin standing up. You turn the palms outward, in breath, raising the hands up level with your eyes. Spread the arms apart on the out breath, bend back. In breath, lift up. Out breath, the downward stretch. Once more. In breath, bring the hands up. Spread them apart. The out breath, bend back. In. Out. So hold the downward stretch a little longer. Get the little bones in the lower spine stretch out. Begin straightening up. In breath, bring the hands together at the chest. Back to the side, and the out breath, feel the whole body. Feel that increased, that force vibrations. Try to feel or imagine the whole body has been washed and bathed, healing life force. Imagine that permeating, suffusing all body, mind, nervous system, blissful present moment awareness. This body is the gateway to the deathless state. Okay, so let's come back to our seats, get ready for the sitting meditation. Okay, friends, get comfortable in your sitting position. Just try to keep the back straight, the chin lifted up level with the floor. Just gently close your eyes. Just feel the eyes in the socket. From that point on the eyes, just try to feel the outline of the sitting body, the sense of the head on top, shoulders, arms at the sides. Feel the hands and fingers touching together, or where they touch your legs. Try to feel the natural inward curve of the lower spine, the lumbar vertebrae. Understand how they help to support the weight of the upper body. See if you can kind of feel or imagine the spinal column going from the base of the spine up to where it joins the base of your skull. And feel where the buttocks press the seat. Feel that hardness, that weight of the body pressing the seat. Just try to feel the outline, that whole outline of the body. Then begin taking some deep, slow breaths like we did in the yoga. Take a few seconds to expand the abdomen, rib cage, and chest. Hold the air in the lungs. 2 or 3 seconds, slowly breathe out. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lungs. Just take several more deep, slow breaths like that, developing this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to count the breaths from 1 to 10. Try to develop a more continuous concentration on the breathing. I'll do the counting for you. Just try to follow that with your breathing and your concentration. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Hold the air in the lungs 1 or 2 seconds. And on the out breath, feel the last bit of air go out of the lungs. Count of 1. Next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In 3. Out 3. In 4. Out 4. In 5. Out 5. In 6. Out 6. In 7. Out 7. In 8. Out 8. In 9. Out 9. In 10. Out 10. Now just continue the counting. Continue to keep your mind focused on the breathing, just letting the breathing return to its uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. Continue to feel the expanding and contracting movement. Just following those movements with awareness, mindfulness. Just knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. You know it by feeling it. So feel where the clothing rubs against the skin of the stomach, rib cage, or chest. It expands and contracts. Just tuning into the 4 phases of each breath cycle. Expanding in breath and the brief pause. The contracting out breath and the brief pause. Over and over and over again. Use these mental reminders to help remember in sitting, out, out, sitting, in sitting, out, out, sitting, breath by breath, moment by moment. If you like, if it helps you to concentrate, you can try counting the breaths again by yourself to see if you can make it to 10 breaths without the mind either dozing off or getting lost in thought. If you catch the mind lost in thoughts, always come back to the counting. Start the counting again at 1. Try to make it to 10 breaths without the mind getting lost in thought. you're able to make it to the count of 10 without the mind getting lost. Again, just try to come back to just the silent awareness. In sitting, out, sitting. Try to feel the outline of the sitting body, breathing going on in the middle of that body. This breathing body is the natural connection to the present moment awareness. Riding that present moment awareness. It's the gateway to the deathless state. Letting go of the thought. Opening up to the flow of impermanence. Other sensations coming and going in and through this breathing body. Letting the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Keeping the breathing body in the front of the awareness. Turn up the power of the mental microscope to notice more and subtler details, sensations. In the breathing process, or other sensations coming and going. Try to notice how each breath is different, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Feel all those changing sensations in the breathing. Being alert for thoughts trying to sneak in and steal your attention away. In sitting, out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. opening up to the flow of impermanence, so many different sensations coming and going in and around the breathing body. Noticing subtler thoughts or urges trying to sneak up into the mind. Catch the mind lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost, lost. Take a deep, slow breath. Bring the mind back into the body. Back to in, sitting. Out, out, sitting. With each out breath, just allow the mind to relax more and more into the present moment. Letting the awareness to expand. Notice more and more sensation, thoughts arising and vanishing. Be aware of any thought or sense of I, me, or mine that you might notice in the mind. Sense of yourself. Understanding that sense of I is this your clever illusion that's created within the mind. If you are ignorant. ego-centered habit. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. So many different sensations coming and going, arising, vanishing, sounds coming and going, thoughts, ideas coming and going. These are all just a continuous state, the five aggregates, and continuous change and flux, impermanence, flow of impermanence, continually arising and vanishing through that expanded space, deathless awareness. See if you can get a taste of that. Just allow that last little sense of I, me, your mind to dissolve into that expanded awareness. Sabbe sankara anicchati Yada panyaya pasati atanibindati duki yesumango visuddhiya. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to the deathless. And thus spoke the Buddha. Now I invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. We do the chanting on a long out breath. Take a deep, slow breath. Now place your hands at the edge of your knees. Take one more deep, slow breath. Stretch the head back, pull the hands on the knees to arch your spine backwards. Lift the head up on an in-breath. On the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest, stretch the neck vertebrae. Lift the chin up level on an in-breath. Relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. This brings our evening of Dhamma discussion and meditation to an end. I hope we were able to have at least some minutes of some concentrated awareness, some insights into the nature of the mind, understanding how those spiritual faculties work together to help develop mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. Okay, friends, so especially this week, it's a holiday weekend. If you're a lot of people traveling around, if you're going home to visit family or friends for the holidays, or whatever else you might be doing. Just keep up your meditation practice, especially practice the M&Ms, the minutes of mindfulness during the day, especially if you catch the mind getting caught up or getting over, be excited or anxious, or upset. Stop what you're doing, take a few deep, slow breaths, bring the mind to the present moment of the body. Okay, so just a reminder, next Wednesday we won't be having this Zoom program, but hopefully during our retreat next week from the next Thursday until the Sunday, we'll be having parts of the retreat, the year-end retreat, including the New Year's Eve, broadcasting some of that over the Zoom, and I'll try to post the times of those Zoom sessions next Monday when I send out the next mailing as a reminder. Okay, so until then, be well, be safe, be mindful, be wise. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo
Thank you,
Buddhaya.
Bhante. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bhante.
This is Marcia. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone. Tomorrow,
Producer,
Thank you.
the sun is coming back.
Yes, the summer solstice, the winter solstice, excuse me.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, the longest day of the year, and then
Sri
That's
Lanka.
right.
Sri Lanka. Will be summer.
different.
Have a good night, everyone.